Hi everyone, welcome back to GCon 360. So we've got a really cool presentation for you guys today with Colin McCarthy, who will be presenting on saving time while increasing security in Google Apps. So for those of you guys who are wondering about how to sort of give extra permissions to certain users and take some of the workload off the main IT admin on your domain, that is what you can learn today. Before we get started, I just want to hold a little bit because it looks like some people are still sort of trickling in. So forgive me if I repeat that, but for those of you who are already in here, there is a 3x3 grid at the top of your Hangouts on Air. If you click into that, you can see the Q&A app. So you can ask questions throughout the presentation, and Colin will be answering those at the end of the presentation. And then there's also the Showcase app, where you can fill out a form to win a bunch of cool GCon and Guru gear, as well as some stuff from our sponsors. So I'd suggest filling out that form at some point during the presentation. And just to reiterate again, this presentation is saving time while increasing security in Google Apps. So it's a great way to learn how to sort of delegate your role out as an IT admin and save yourself a little bit of headache and saves yourself some time and make a better structured domain. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Colin. And Colin, why don't you take it away?
Hi, thanks very much, Dylan. All right, hello everybody. Let me just click a couple of buttons here. I'm keeping everything on brand today by using a 2013 Chromebook Pixel. So here we go. Everybody should be able to see that first slide. So thanks to Google Guru for asking me to present today, and to welcome to viewers on the West Coast that are probably still eating their breakfast. East Coast people who are probably waiting for this to be over so they can go out to lunch. My London colleagues and people in Europe hoping to go home soon, and those die-hard Google Apps fans in Asia who have hopefully stayed up late to watch us. As said, I'm going to be showing you how you can save time by delegating Google Apps admin tasks while not enabling super admin privileges for your support staff. And while I'm not a leading expert on admin security, many of what I'm going to talk about might seem obvious to you. However, it's often great to go over the basics and refresh what you should be doing. And so I really hope this is going to be useful for those of you who are moving to Google Apps for work or thinking about doing so. Just a little bit about myself. Started doing IT support in 1997 with CompuServe, getting people connected to the internet in a very, very slow manner. I've also been a Google Docs user since it was Writely, way back in the day. Been using Google Apps for Work, although back then it was called Google Apps for Business, since 2009. And then I've been a Google Apps super admin since 2010. And when I first started, I was made a super admin on day one. And giving new IT staff full access might not be right for your business or a good security practice. So we'll show you how, with access control permissions, you can onboard new IT staff, increasing their access rights as they progress. This is going to be especially important for larger support environments with tiered first, second line, and possibly a third line structure. So here's just a quick agenda of what I plan to cover in the next 30-odd minutes. We're going to go through some good practice basics, system roles in cPanel. I'm quite old school and I'm used to calling cPanel. I believe now Google have renamed it to an admin panel or the admin control. So there might be some differences with what you see in documentation. How you can set custom roles, enabling and customizing alerts, access control considerations for marketplace applications, access control in BetterCloud, which I know there's been a session about yesterday, and then just some final Jerry Springer type thoughts and a recap. So often the most basic stuff can be overlooked. Yeah. When you leave home every day, your mother, your wife, husband, significant other is always going to tell you to take care and drive safely. It's the basic stuff. It needs to be reminded, and you shouldn't be overlooking it. So it's always been a long time standard practice on Windows domains or Linux-based Samba LDAP domains to have a separate user account and an admin account. I once worked at a firm where people use their domain admin account as their regular login on a daily basis, and there was disastrous consequences once. And only after this mistake was that practice changed. And while it might be the easiest way to operate, having the highest level of access rights, it's certainly not the safest. So that's why we should always be looking to operate daily on the most limited rights necessary to do our role. Your Google Apps and other software as a service systems should be treated the same way now that your traditional networks are. And using a super admin account that's not called administrator or super admin is a good practice, as this would make any social engineering hack so much harder. It's possibly also not a good practice to have first or last name as your super admin account, and keep your super admin account, that's of course going to have full rights over your domain, as something secret that is not publicly known. The other thing we should be doing if you have an information security manager is regularly reviewing your permissions and checking that if you have a large IT support staff and a tiered structure, that people only have the right permissions to do their role. You can also look to enabling alerts in cPanel for events, and if you're using a product like BetterCloud or another management program, you can often set up reports to give you a detailed list of who has what rights, and especially who has a super admin right. And most importantly, you should always enable two-step verification on your admin accounts if this isn't already standard on your domain. And of course, with two-step verification, you need to ensure that you have the backup codes if your initial point of processing the two-step verification, either a telephone call from your cell phone or another phone, or using the app isn't available, you should always have your backup codes available. So let's go through and look at system roles in cPanel, or now called admin panel. So first of all, you just need to go to manage your domain and then click on admin roles. Now this page can be customized, so it might not look exactly the same as yours, and some of these options might even be hidden down at the bottom of the screen. You just have to raise it up and then select it, and you can move these icons around to how you want. So if we click on admin roles, it then takes us to the system roles screen, where we can see the Google predefined system roles just on the left hand side, and they're super admin, groups admin, user management, help desk services, and if you have it enabled, there's now a new admin for work admin. And all of these permissions are broken down as follows. The super admin, of course, has access to everything on your domain. It's like a God account, okay? It's root, it's your master admin account, and it is the most highest level. You need to have at least one account on your domain as a super admin, but Google recommends having at least two. That way, if one of you forgets your password, the other can reset it for you. You should also ensure you have added the recovery information for your administrator account, which can be done in cPanel under Company Information tab, and this can be done for the primary super admin account. And then it can also be done individually for any other super admin under the account recovery options in their account setting page, which you would have gone through when you set up two-step verification. And in there, you can set up a phone number and a backup email address. Now, this account is, and I will stress, a very high-level account. So you should have two-step verification enabled on this account. Have your backup codes printed, keep them somewhere safe, either in another two-step verification account or have them stored electronically in an encrypted form. The next system role is Groups Admin. This allows you to view user profiles and your organizational structure, create new groups, manage the membership by deleting and adding and moving. You can also change the group access settings, which would be if the group can be emailed externally, or if it can only be emailed by members of the group or only by owners of the group. So all of those settings can be done by the group admin. The next one is user management admin. This allows you to create and delete user accounts, rename users, change passwords, and manage the user's individual security settings, which would allow them to revoke application-specific passwords and view the two-step verification backup codes if a user themselves didn't have these codes. Now, there are some asterisks against these because there is one important thing to note. The user management admin profile does not have rights over an administrator. So, of course, the super admin account is protected, and somebody with user management admin can't make any changes to this account. So that's why you do need to have 2 admin accounts on your domain. The most basic built-in system role is the help desk admin. And this is a useful first group of permissions to give a new support starter as the part of their onboard process. So with this account, they can just reset passwords and they can view the profile information. Now, this is very useful potentially if you have a remote office, depending on the size of your organization. You might have a remote office that doesn't have on-site support and might be in a time zone that's outside of your main support hours. And you could use this permission to give somebody trusted, somebody senior, or an an office administrator, an HR person, access to this system role with it, and then they would be able to assist if there was any login issues in that remote office. When applying any of the access roles, you can select which organizational unit they have rights over. So it is possible, if you've structured your domain for different offices, you can just give somebody in a specific office access to this help desk admin system role. And I know organizational units were mentioned in a couple of the G conferences sessions yesterday, and it is very sensible to have your domain structured in organizational units, either by department or region or location. Another system role is services admin. And this is an area where you don't really need to touch or use that much. And I would consider this quite a high level, almost like a third tier access right, because it gives the ability to turn off or on services. Now, services can be turned off or on an organizational unit. So once again, this is why it's a good practice to manage your domain and structure it in an organizational unit. You can also change service settings and permissions. You can create custom service addresses, and you can manage the Chrome and mobile devices. Now, the change services settings might be required if you wanted to add an email address or a domain to a blacklist, a whitelist, or a spam list. And I would consider that more of like a second to third line role, or even something you might want to reserve as a super admin task. So that was all of the inbuilt system roles, but not all of the system roles are going to be right for your infrastructure and the way your organizational works. And while you can assign people to multiple system roles, you might want to create a more accurate role so you can give people the permissions they want. And you can easily do that by clicking on Create New Role, and you can create your own custom role. And this starts a very simple wizard where you just name the role, and then you have a series of checkboxes where they're broken down into all of these different sections, and you can go through and you can select all of the options you want. These can be quite complex, some of the permissions they give you, and there's a very good help document there just linked up on the top corner. And I'm sure these documents, this presentation will be shared later for somebody to click on that, or you can just Google administrator privileges definitions and you'll be able to find it. So let's go through and have a look and see what sort of options we do get. So under organizational units, you get the ability to give somebody permission to create, read, update, or delete an organization. And in our instance, in our IT support role, we want people to have the ability to update organizational units as somebody might transfer from one office to the other. So I give them that ability by just putting in the tick box there. Also, under the user options, you get the ability to create, and then there's a lot of options under update. You can rename the users, reset their password. A very important checkbox to do with resetting passwords is also forcing a password change. So if you reset somebody's password, it's probably common standard practice to reset it to something that's easy for them to type in initially, but you want the Google login to force them to change that password when they are next logging in, so they can create something unique and more complex for themselves. So that's a good checkbox to have. Something like renaming users, if your users get married or change their name or creating aliases, that might not be a first level task that you would want to give people. You may want that to have that just for a second or a third line person. So you can create specific roles for that. And also as part of the offboarding process of your staff as they leave, you might need to give your first line or second or third line support people the suspended user right, so they can suspend those users. Depending on the nature of your business, you might not want to give your end user, your first line support people, the ability to delete accounts. That might be a higher process to make sure that the deprovisioning process has gone through correctly. And I know there was talk yesterday in the BetterCloud demonstration about doing the deprovisioning, and that should always be done with care. So removing that option is something to consider in your organization. Under some of the security sections, you can give your support staff access to the backup codes and to the revoke application-specific passwords, and that's all accessible if they have the user security management checkbox ticked. Giving IT support staff access to revoke application-specific passwords and services that have access to your Google Apps domain is a very important part of the deprovisioning process. So it's a good permission for whoever is in charge of deprovisioning your users, giving them access to that. Now, I would say there is a security consideration to think about in your organization with giving IT support staff access to the two-step backup codes. As with this right and the ability to change passwords, they could access that user's account. Of course, access can be restricted by organizational unit. So if there are senior, financial, or potentially confidential accounts that you wouldn't want your support staff to have access to, you can specify when you're creating these roles that your IT support staff would only be able to access the user security management for a specific organizational unit, and therefore protecting your possibly potentially confidential or senior accounts. And I know there was a a G conference session yesterday about some of the potential issues with account security and having rogue staff, which depending on the scale of your organization, I hope nobody ever has to deal with, but as an IT administrator, it's something that you always have to consider. Going further down into the custom privileges, if you have Android for Work enabled, you can give somebody the rights to administer the Google Play for Work, where they can whitelist applications that would be available in the Google Play for Work store, and they can upload specific applications so that people with a separate work profile on their Android device would be able to gain access to them. Also, under the shared device settings, you can give one of your support staff the permission to push out virtual private network details, access to Wi-Fi networks, and any Ethernet settings that you might have that are specific to your domain. And this can be for mobile, Chrome, or Chromebox for meetings if you're managing them on your domain. So that was an overview of the customized alerts the customized roles that you can make within the cPanel, the admin panel. Another part of giving people access to make changes on your domain is also to customize reports and to manage alerts so that you as an administrator can be informed of when these changes are happening. You might want to know just for process reasons or for security reasons. And in the customized report section, they're broken down into user type alerts like password changes, users being created, users being deleted, etc., to settings changes that might affect your domain either in mobile, drive, or calendar. And also now you can do customized alerts where you can monitor specific actions on your domain like group additions or deletions, or you might have a need to monitor a specific support staff user's actions, either as part of a decommissioning process of them if they're leaving, or to alleviate any errors that might be happening on your domain. As a systems administrator, you can never really have too much information and be advised about what's happening. So let's have a look at the customized reports. Once again, we go back to our main cPanel or admin panel, and then we click on reports. If you don't see reports on your page, it's probably down under the, I think, more options tab at the bottom. Once we click on that, we just go to the bottom and then click on Manage Alerts. And in here, there's a very simple page with a series of toggles which allow us to toggle on or off stuff like suspicious login activity, mobile settings being changed, user passwords being changed, and also if a user admin privilege has been revoked. If you clicked on one of these alerts, you have the ability to edit it, and by default the alerts go to the super administrators depending on how many you have on your domain. You can also add other recipients. You can either add groups or you can add individual users. And this is in this instance, for the apps outage alert, I've added our internal IT support group so that myself, my other network manager in London, and then our IT support staff around all our offices will get alerted of a Google Apps outage alert so that they, as a first line support person, are alerted of potential issues if end users start speaking to them about problems they're having. And here is an example of an alert message regarding a technical issue with Google Apps, in this case Gmail. And this is a very handy alert for probably all of your first line support staff to be aware of, because they might get an influx of calls and then they can already be informed of what's happening. Another example of a Gmail setting alert that you might get is an alert here saying that I have changed the IMAP access settings. I turned IMAP off. This went to me as a super administrator. It also went to my colleague in London, and I actually spoke to him and I confirmed to him that this was a change that I was doing. Depending on the size of your domain, you might want to be looking and changing and checking on any settings changes that might have a security impact on your domain, and you might have a change process system that you would want to go through. Another example of alerts you would get is if a password has been changed for any particular user on your domain. Now, one of the new features in customized reports is really customized reports, and you can create some very interesting customized alerts, and they're accessed from the same menu under reports, and then there's a number of different audit streams that you can create reports on, and they are the admin audit, tokens audit, calendar audit, and logmin audit. There is also another one called Drive Audit, but that is only available for Google Apps Unlimited editions or Google Drive for Work, I believe. I get confused with some of the naming conventions. It's also available for Google Apps for education. So if you've got Google Apps Unlimited or Google Apps for Work, no, Google Drive for Work, then you have access to a Drive audit, and you can create some quite specific auditing alerts based on Drive permissions. So here I've created a customized alert for a login failure. So anytime somebody types in their Google password wrong, it creates a login email alert, and that goes to myself and my London colleague as a super administrator. This is very useful for us to spot trends in potentially staff forgetting their username and password, or if there is what we can see a potential somebody trying to maybe break into somebody's account or looking for strange behavior. Unfortunately, the emails that are generated don't give access, don't give all of the information that's available in your reports tab. Hopefully one day Google will be able to increase the information that's available in the email, like adding the IP address as well. And under the admin console log, more information can be obtained from that support URL. And there's a lot of information in there, too much to go through in this presentation. So that covers custom alerts. With Google Apps, the wonderful thing that Google Apps has is a great marketplace of third-party services that you can add to enhance your Google Apps for Work experience. And one thing to consider when looking at any third-party service is, do they have the level of customization you require? Do the fixed templates that they have in place, do they work for your organization? For something like a backup service, do they allow backup staff to restore but not read the contents of Google Apps data? If they don't have granular admin rights, is it on their roadmap? Is it going to be released this quarter, this year? Can you get involved in any beta testing to ensure that it's a product that you want to be using? And if the service that you want to use or need to use doesn't have any custom admin rights, does this mean that either only the super admins can administer this service, or do lower level IT support staff then have to have access to the whole service? And of course, there's potentially a security issue depending on the nature of your organization, its size, and of course, the third-party Google Apps marketplace service that you're looking into. So I know a lot of the third-party marketplace applications are being built from the ground up now with this granular admin built in from day one. So if you are a Google marketplace company, or you're thinking of creating an app, please ensure that you have granular admin rights built into your app from day one. It's definitely something that I myself look for in a product, and I'm sure many other people will be too. If you are a marketplace app that doesn't have granular admin rights, please enable them as quickly and as fast as you can. So yesterday you saw a demo of BetterCloud, and that's a service that we use. And there are other programs out there that will allow you to administer your Google Apps domain. And I know they have access control options too. But in BetterCloud, I'll show you how you can enable access control. You just have to click on the cog up by your name in the search bar, and then click on access control. And in here, there are some predefined roles. And you can also create a custom one, and you can see at the bottom I've got a custom one called IT support. And when you click on that create button, you have to name. It starts a wizard where you create, starts a wizard where you name the role, and you can also select users either by group or individual users that you want to have added to that new role that you're creating. And then you get some very easy to understand, very granular checklists. And I actually love the layout of this. It's very easy. It has a lot of granular control, and you can, from here, you can be quite specific about what admin rights you give people. From here, you could say create a profile for an office manager so that they can update a user's contact details like their title and phone number, which would then feed into an auto-generated signature if that's used in BetterCloud or any other admin control panel. So here you can really go through and finely tune the permissions that you want to give people. And of course, as usual, you should always be giving people the lowest level of permissions that they need to do their daily job. So there we go. Here we have some final thoughts and a recap of the security best practices. As I've said over and over again, we do it on Windows domains, we do it on Linux domains, you do it on your computer, whether it's Windows-based, Linux-based, or Mac OS. You always work on the lowest limited access rights. And if you need to do anything specific, you type in a username or password and it becomes a deliberate act. With your software as a service and Google Apps for Work, you should be treating it the same way. You can never really have too much tinfoil in your IT hat, so you should always be reviewing your permissions regularly and going through and enabling IT support, enabling alerts that could go to your IT support department. In larger organizations, as I've said, you should review all of these details with your information security manager, depending on the nature of your business, ensuring that you're fully compliant. In smaller one-person companies, maybe you're the sole IT support person for that company. Make sure you have a secondary super admin account. Possibly print off those details, give it to the finance director. They can put it in the safe, keep it secure. You should also need to make sure that two-step verification is enabled on all of your super admin accounts and all of your IT support staff accounts, and making sure yourself as the super admin you have your backup codes. There is also one other important thing that I have discovered going through and learning myself and reading a lot of the information that's available in the Google Apps for Work support pages is about how to reset your administrator password. And this was something that I myself will make sure that we have locked down, and I know my London colleague we have already, is from that YouTube video, there is a way you can reset your administrator password by by a CNAME record change. So not only do you need to secure your Google Apps for Work domain, you also need to make sure that your DNS host or the registrar you're using for your DNS entries is also secure, because as yesterday is one of the Google conference sessions was talking about disgruntled or rogue employees. If you did have a disgruntled Google Apps admin, and unfortunately in this day and age not all business relationships end well, if you did have a disgruntled admin and they was able to go through the administrator password function and they still had access to your DNS records, they could reset remotely the super admin password and then regain access to your domain. So I hope everybody found that interesting. I hope a lot of that was common sense to a lot of you. If you are a new Google Apps user or thinking of using Google Apps, I hope that was very beneficial, and you can see how granular you can make your controls and how well Google Apps can be fine-tuned so that you can make it nice and secure.
Okay, that was very informative. Thank you so much, Colin. So before we jump into questions, I just want to give a quick thank you to those who made this presentation possible. Am I echoing? Hearing a little bit of an echo. So hold on, get this up. So I just want to give a thank you to our sponsors, AODocs, Smartsheet, Spanning by EMC, Switch.co, Virtru, and everyone else who helped to make GCon 360 possible. And having said that, Let's jump into questions. Oh yeah, and just a reminder that the form is up for those of you who are interested in winning a cool GCon swag box with t-shirts and tools and other things. That is up in the Showcase app. So we have a couple questions here. So see, Martin asked a question. It seems like a few other users answered this, but I think it's worth addressing to everyone. So, Colin, is two-step manageable for super admin accounts when the control panel logs out the admin every 10 to 15 minutes? How do you suggest handling that?
How would I suggest? So yes. Oh, I can hear a slight echo now. I hope that's not getting to other people. I can hear it on myself. I'll try and ignore it. So the question is two-step verification being logged out the admin control panels. Yes, I accidentally once logged myself out of my admin control panel and my account. When we first enabled two-step verification, I didn't record any of the backup codes, and that's why I specified multiple times that you need to have backup codes recorded. You can select multiple telephone numbers as backup codes. I made the terrible mistake of only relying on the app to start with. I now have multiple telephone numbers as backup. I also have the code stored somewhere. It is a big consideration, the two-step for super admin accounts. My Nexus 5 is in dire need of being reset to factory default, so it's as fresh as a spring chicken. But I know it's going to be quite a process because I do rely on the Google Authenticator an awful lot, not only for my work domain, my personal domain, and for other systems as well. So I would just make sure that people have a secondary administrator, which as standard, have your backup codes or have secondary numbers, tied to your two-step verification.
Definitely. Another thing to keep in mind is that you do have the option to remember a device for up to 30 days, I believe. So if you have a work computer that you use frequently and you're the only one that uses it, it might be worth checking that option so that way you don't have to worry about the two-step on that device, and it's only when you're using a new device that you'd really have to worry about those two-step codes.
Yes, yeah. And also with the admin control panel, you can put the tick in the box to remember your password. I actually work on the process of not having that box ticked, and every time I go to my admin control panel, I have to do the two-step verification. I like that just as an added security bonus. Maybe there is too much tinfoil on my hat, but I'd rather be overly secure than my computer, to be compromised one day somehow.
Okay, so here's a question from Kenneth that I think I could actually field because I was looking at this the other day. So did Google say they were going to allow users to reset their own passwords for Google Apps, EDU, and for work, like any other Gmail? So actually that is a new feature that they released, that the admin can give the end user the rights to reset their own password. It's still slowly rolling out, so it's not on every domain, but keep an eye out for when it is fully rolled out. I'll be making a guru video on that and sending it out to all the subscribers, so you'll be aware.
I think there is a limitation to that. I can't remember what the limitation was. And I know that super admins have the ability to turn that off. I'd have to look up the details, but I know there was a reason why we weren't going to enable that on our domain.
Okay, and Mark Smith is wondering, is there a comprehensive document or template that describes each of the security settings / privileges when creating your custom account types?
Yes, yeah. In my presentation, there is, I'm pretty sure I had the URL in there. I know I took all of the details. All of the images were, and the text was copied and pasted from the Google support site. So if you do look up, system roles in the in the help site, you'll be able to see all of the different permissions. And even when you're going through setting up some of the permissions, there's a little question mark. If you click on that, it will take you to the help site. It would really be good if Google added, those quick, help question marks to launch the support site on all of the options, but it's only available on some of the options.
Okay, so that's all the questions that we have on this topic for now. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned in. We do have another session coming up in a few hours, so you guys can have a little break for lunch. It's how to build a robust unified communication suite within Google, and that's with switch.co. Should be a really interesting one, and attendees of that session will be able to win a Chromebook Pixel. So definitely worth tuning in. Thank you so much, Colin. This was a great presentation. Hope we can have you on again to do another one next time we do GCon.
Thank you. I hope everybody learned something, and going over the basics again was very beneficial for everybody.
Oh yeah, and before I forget, also that form that you can fill out to win the swag box, it will also get you a copy of the slide deck if you fill that out. So even if you're not interested in winning free stuff, maybe some people aren't, you can still get the slides if you want to study this stuff later. So have a great day, everyone. I'll see you at the next session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.